Hey everybody, this is David Flute here with the South Dakota Department of Tribal Relations. For this week's Tribal Tuesday, we wanted to do a quick recap of the 4 bands of Dakota, the 2 that we talked about in the last Tribal Tuesday, and a continuation of the other 2 bands that made up the 4 bands of the Dakota. The 2 bands we talked about recently were the Beriwakantu, which means those that dwell by a spirit lake, or those that dwell by the Great Lakes, or in the Great Lakes region. And the Wahpekute, those that were dwellers in the leaves, those that had chose to live in the woods or in wooded areas. The other 2 bands of Dakota were the Sissetuwa and the Wahpekute. The Sissetuwa also were known and called as Ski-Ski-Tuwa. And so there might have been a little bit of misunderstanding in the pronunciation way back when, a few hundred years ago or longer. And the Sissetuwa or Ski-Ski-Tuwa, they were identified by that name because of their means of sustenance, which they lived a lot by the lakes and had used aquatic life to be able to sustain themselves. Fish and gar, sturgeon, northern pike, walleye, and those types of fish that were indigenous to our area before other fish were introduced. And so that's why tribes had identified them as the Sissetuwa. And a lot of historians, a lot of modern day historians and writers, they identify them, their interpretation, as dwellers by the marsh, which it can be argued that that's not really what it meant, but we still need to be open to those interpretations. The other was the Wahpekute. And the Wahpekute, what the literal translation means, is shooters from the leaves. And I really like to share this story and this history because through my personal research, through my experience in the military, this is where the ghillie suit comes from that our snipers use in the U.S. military. And again, that can be argued from a lot of different people, but to share in this Tribal Tuesday, the Wahpekute were called shooters from the leaves because they would camouflage themselves. And they were like the elite force, what we consider today our Navy SEALs, U.S. Special Forces, Green Berets. The Wahpekute were some of the fiercest warriors of the plains. And they would camouflage themselves with leaves. And if you can imagine back in the day when our U.S. cavalry were coming across the plains in their blue and gold military attire, their buttons were always shiny, their boots were always nice and shined up. And so on a hot summer day or any clear day, they were easy to spot in the Great Plains area or even in the Great Lakes area. They were easy to identify. And the Dakotas would camouflage themselves. There were times, unfortunately, in our history that we warred with each other and there were battles, and the Wahpekute would have the surprise of the attack because they were camouflaged. And we see that today in what's called the ghillie suit that our sniper units wear. They camouflage themselves in that ghillie suit where they can't be spotted by the enemy. So we just wanted to share that for this Tribal Tuesday. And in the following Tuesdays to come, we'll get some information out about the Ihanktuwa and the Ihanktuwana and also the Tituwa bands.